Many people turn to God with requests to fulfill their desires and free them from suffering. But not receiving an answer, they lose faith and say that God doesn't exist or that He is indifferent to us. Now you will learn the reason for His silence. To ensure prosperity for all society, God has established rules, following which a person can live a happy life. And when his time comes to leave this temporary world, return home to the eternal spiritual world. These simple basic rules are presented in all the main scriptures of any religion. Let's take a closer look. Unlike us, God is not driven by egoism, because the entire universe belongs to Him and is His energy. He has nothing to desire for Himself, because He has all the riches that one can only imagine, and it is only for Him to think, and all His desires are instantly fulfilled. Having no shortcomings inherent in people, each of His decisions and actions is thoroughly thought out and brings benefit and prosperity to each of us, to all society, and to all inhabitants of our planet, including animals and other living beings. And they are aimed at ensuring that we are all comfortable living with each other, and no one infringes on the interests of our neighbor. And a person differs from God in that he doesn't think globally, and all his thoughts and actions are directed solely at how to improve only his own life and the life of his family, without worrying about the well-being and interests of others. Being here temporarily and consuming the resources of the planet created not by us but by God, we are in illusion and think that we are endowed with all the fullness of power and the ability to solve the problems of the entire universe. But at the same time, we cannot solve the problems arising in our own lives. And being in such an interesting state of consciousness, not believing in the existence of higher laws and the inevitable punishment for violating them, we decide not to follow them and begin to live as we see fit. Simply put, we begin to sin. What is sin? Sin means refusing to obey God and His will, as well as consciously or unconsciously causing suffering to others, and not only to people, but to all living beings. Continuing to live such a life, we gradually begin to reap the reward of our sins, in the form of problems, misfortunes, suffering, and a decline in living standards. Unable to cope with all these gifts of fate, we come to the understanding that we are not such great masters of this life as it seemed to us before. At this moment, a person begins to realize that there is someone more powerful than him, someone who has all the power and the ability to influence his life, since he himself has lost control over it. And so, without changing his life, continuing to sin, and live as he pleases and is accustomed to, a person turns to God, with requests to deliver him from suffering and fulfill all his wishes. And he continues to do this for some time, and seeing no answer from God, a person gives up and says that God either does not exist or that He is indifferent to our problems. But God is in the heart of each of us and knows perfectly well what we are thinking and what actions we are taking. And believe me, He is not at all indifferent. Let's look at this situation from God's point of view. If He answers the prayers and fulfills the wishes of such a person, then in this way He will show that by living without rules that are established only to make the life of each of us calm, peaceful, and prosperous, He will encourage a sinful life and irresponsibility, and thereby show that such a life is rewarded. Of course, He cannot allow this to happen. That's why God leaves the prayers of such a person unanswered, and He continues to bear responsibility for his sinful deeds. And since our entire society lives a sinful life, it seems to everyone that God doesn't exist or that He has no compassion for us. Because of our egoism, we simply don't understand that by acting contrary to simple moral rules, we cause pain and suffering to others, and also demoralize and corrupt the entire society. From such behavior on our part, the life of each of us turns not into life, but into a struggle for existence and a complete hell. And this is exactly what we see now. Therefore, if each of us seeks the causes of our suffering in ourselves and not in others, begins to follow simple moral rules and stops sinning, and only then turns to God, then God will gladly answer the prayers of such a noble person. If you want God to be kind to you, then just remember Him, try to know Him, and don't sin intentionally. And in the person of God, you will find the most loyal and close friend. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.